What's good? Osiris here, stuck in the middle. Thanks for stopping by. You remember in Raiders of the Lost Ark, I believe it was, that Harrison Ford, young Harrison Ford, man, those movies back then were so charming. They just don't have that charm anymore for most movies. He's talking with these bureaucrats, and he sits down with them, and they're telling him about the guy with the funny mustache, and he's going to look for, I believe it was the original tablet of the Ten Commandments. And I think this is what it was about. And then Harrison Ford sits down and says, well, what are we going to do about this? We can't let it go into the hands of the wrong people. And they said, we already got people working on it. And Harrison Ford's like, who you got working on it? And the bureaucrat's like, we got top men.
We have top men working on it right now. Who? Top men.
And Harrison Ford's like, something like, who? Top men? He's like, yeah, top men. We got top men working on a lot of stuff. And I probably butchered that. I haven't seen that movie in a long time. I'm going to have to watch it. Every time I talk about an old movie, I got to go back and watch it. I want to make sure that I cover this topic with the respect for my overlords. Nothing makes me feel more safe than we're being worried about being censored about a topic that really we should be able to talk openly and freely and even be able to be wrong about. With misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, I don't give a what the hell information, you should be able to be wrong about it and be corrected. But top men are working on a pandemic agreement, a treaty of sorts. And they're already having public hearings about this. They closed it down, but it's become more of a topic. There are some people who even went to the website, and this is through the website Truth Unmuted, and they said a bunch of people were linking the public submissions to provide feedback on a world treaty, and the website crashed because there was a lot of feedback. That's something that I am looking at. Probably one of my top things on my mind right now. When you look at what's happening in our country, Jen Psaki recently said, hey, the CDC, we're going to, I don't even know where it's at right now, but she said something to the effect of the DOJ or CDC. The DOJ wants to challenge the ruling of no mask on the mass transit because we've got to ensure the CDC has power. All that is, the CDC is a part of the executive branch. So what she's really saying is we want to ensure that the president has powers. But they are doing this thing where it's like whatever the CDC says, that's what the president does. And that's not how it's supposed to work. You can do that. You can do that. But that's not how it's supposed to work. The CDC is a part of the executive branch. They just deal with what they deal with. Center of Disease and Control. They get their information, they put their recommendation out, and then the executive branch can say, we want to bring in economists, we want to bring in sociologists, we want to bring in whoever, climate change, whoever we want to bring in. Here's the information from the CDC. How does that affect the world? And then we make an independent decision. Because the CDC, they're not economists. They can do that if they want, but they're not economists. You would bring in your own economists to say, if we lock down the United States for just hypothetically 6 months, what's the ramifications to the economy? How many people would probably pass away? And we weigh that and we say the CDC recommendation, hypothetically, not in a real scenario, the CDC might say, hey, we got to lock down for 6 months. And then the executive branch looks at it and says, well, we can't do that, obviously, so here's what we are going to do. The CDC has no power. They're just the executive branch. So what's happening is the president and the executive branch is hiding behind someone that reports to them and says, hey, I my hands are tied. The person who reports to me said I have to do this. And it's not even a person that's well-rounded in every topic. It's just one specific topic. And then on top of that, Congress, Senate or House can create their own committee. So the Senate can say, we've got our scientific experts. The House could say, we've got our scientific experts and we don't agree, or we agree and we confirm. Do you see all the different checks and balances? And then the House can draw law and say, we don't like the executive order, scratch that. There's checks and balances all over the place. But what we have is all these politicians hiding behind, even at the state level, hiding behind the CDC and decisions they make to talk about public. I'm not questioning the science. I'm not a scientist. I don't do that. What I'm questioning is the government policy, though. So the government takes the CDC information, and then they're just saying, whatever the CDC, even governors of states, whatever the CDC says, that's what we do. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. So what they're doing is hiding behind the CDC, because the CDC reports to them, at least in the executive branch. So the executive branch wants something to happen. The CDC, how do we know the CDC isn't doing what the executive branch wants them to do? And then the executive branch says, it wasn't me, it was the CDC. Look what Obama just spoke recently on big tech stuff, censorship. Basically, this is my opinion, Obama was just basically trying to say that big tech companies need to do more censoring, and the censoring that we need you to do is anything that we don't believe is misinformation. And that's a lack of unity and danger. If you believe, Barack Obama would say that this video right now is dangerous. I haven't even said anything, really. All I've done is a basic civics discussion. But I know that's very dangerous to talk about that right now. So Barack Obama is a former president. He's not directly in the government anymore, but basically all it is the government telling private companies, we need more of a lockdown from you. Y'all are letting too many things leak. People like libs of TikTok can't rise to the top. That's basically what Obama is saying. Would somebody ask him about that, by the way? I'm curious on what Obama thinks about libs of TikTok. Is that a fair question to ask the president? Are you okay with the rise of a private citizen that shares things that might not align with your view? That's the test of free speech, Mr. President. Is everybody in on this? Why is nobody asked these questions? Maybe I missed it. We're relying on one guy, Peter Doocy, basically, to ask any question that means something. I haven't watched the last few press conferences. How could libs of TikTok not come up? Is the president okay? We know, I'm just going to assume, you correct me if I'm wrong, that the president's ideology does not agree with this Twitter account, Libs of TikTok, which was doxed or exposed the doxing through someone who was funded by the German government. But let's throw that aside. Does the president support the right of Libs of TikTok to rise into power with an ideology or an opinion that doesn't match his? What's happening is Barack Obama is an agent of the government, in my opinion, and they're doing an end around. The government can't directly tell the tech companies this, even though they have. I have clips, I have receipts. Jen Psaki literally putting a list together of people that she wanted banned from social media. It really happened. But this is an end around. And that brings me to this treaty. This is a treaty that would override the Constitution of every country that would agree to it. And if you want to know if the U.S. supports it, it's right here. U.S. supports creation of global pandemic treaty. Everything's about doing an end around the Constitution. The Constitution is the biggest thing in the world. It is the best document in the world right now. As far as protecting the rights of people. Now, I know it's not worth anything. It's a piece of paper, but it is giving us time. It is buying time for us to figure stuff out. It's not going to be perfect. It is not some magical force field. So if we don't do anything with this time it's buying us, we could look 5 years from now, and I don't know what the timing is on this. We could look quicker than that, and before you know it, our Constitution, nah. You know that Constitution that you all have? We're in the middle of a pandemic, so nah, you don't have none of those rights. That's the seriousness of the level that we're looking at. The United States is committed to working with member states to take forward the recent recommendations of the working group on the preparedness and response that includes developing a new top men convention agreement or other international instrument and making agreements to improve the effectiveness and agility of international top men organizations. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said in interview aboard Air Force One. They are even doing propaganda saying in the UK. The UK had an article that was titled, "You'll never believe this. The real risk." What's the real risk? The real risk, a pandemic treaty could be too watered down to stop new outbreaks. Experts call for an independent body to publicly assess, rebuke, and praise these preparedness as a part of any new treaty. And when you have this global group of experts, if you are expert or if you are anybody outside that even asks the wrong questions, then you are banned, gone. Here's one of the quotes from that article to set the stage for you to actually fight for this top men organization to have more power than you could imagine. Quote, "Our biggest fear is it's too easy to think that accountability doesn't matter." Accountability, for as I go away from accountability, means flowing down from the top. There's no people accountability going to the top men. Just to make sure that that's clear. That's a one-way street. That's not two-way traffic. To have a treaty that does not, and in fact, if you try to make it two-way, you will get into a bad situation. To have a treaty that does not have compliance in it, well, frankly, then there's no point in having a treaty. And what does that mean? That means if America's in the treaty and you say, wait, I don't know about this part of the treaty because we have a constitution, that's non-compliance. Your constitution doesn't matter right now. This is the ultimate end game. The report goes on to say that the current top men regulations are too weak and calls for the creation of a new independent international body to assess government preparedness and publicly rebuke or praise countries depending on their compliance with a set of agreed requirements. You know what? We've already agreed on the requirements. It's called the U.S. Constitution. And when things get tough, like a pandemic, it actually means more than it does on the normal Saturday afternoon. That's one of the big reasons why it all makes sense now, doesn't it? The 1619 Project. Let's reimagine the United States as when 1619, when the first slaves came over, that's the start of the country. That's the start of the poison pill or poison fruit that bore the seed of the Constitution. The Constitution is poison, and you teach kids this, and these kids are now getting older and older. They're going to be 16, 17, 18, in their 30s, and they're going to look at the Constitution as a racist, slave-promoting document. And when someone comes around and says, well, we need to push that racist, slave-supporting document off to the side, they say, bet. Now, we're going to survive no matter what. I don't want to make this sound like the world is ending. I want to be aware. I'm not going to be walking around like a zombie. But kids are going to grow up in a world where the Constitution is just literally, probably whenever they say that there's a pandemic, the Constitution gets pushed to the side, and it's not a big deal. Just like when you pay income taxes. There's no big deal on that anymore. It's just normal. You have a social security number. That's normal. They're born into it. There's no question about it. And it is what it is. That's what's going to happen here. For this treaty to have teeth, the organization that governs it needs to have the power, either political or legal, to enforce compliance. Are you paying attention yet? It echoes the other top men report from May calling for more powers. So the people trying to create the document are basically working with other top men to say we need more power. And then when the people say, wait a second, who's getting power? The website crashes, they censor videos. Like, wait, no. We decide how much power we have over you. Don't just stay in your place. In its current form, top men do not possess such powers to move on with the treaty. Top men therefore need to be empowered. So now we're talking about legally, politically, and financially. Now it's time to follow the money. It recommends the involvement of non-state actors such as the Top Men Bank, the Top Men Monetary Fund, the Top Men Organization, and the Top Men Labor Organization in the negotiations, and suggests the treaty offer financial incentives for the early reporting of these emergencies. In the case of a declared emergency, resources need to flow to the countries in which the emergency is occurring, triggering response elements such as financing. Where's this financing coming from? Top men. Who's top men? Well, they're warm-hearted individuals. Trust me. Just trust me. These are some of the most warm-hearted and kind people. I think you're gonna find this, this clip here heartwarming.
WHO is committed to working with all countries and all people to suppress transmission, reduce mortality, support communities to protect themselves and others, and support strong government leadership and coordination. Let me be blunt. Too many countries are headed in the wrong direction. The virus remains public enemy number one. But the actions of many governments and people do not reflect of this. The only aim of the virus is to find people to infect. Mixed messages from leaders are undermining the most critical ingredient of any response: trust. If governments do not clearly communicate with their citizens and roll out a comprehensive strategy focused on suppressing transmission and saving lives, if populations do not follow the basic public health principles of physical distancing, hand washing, wearing masks, coughing etiquette, and staying at home when sick, if the basics aren't followed, there is only one way this pandemic is going to go. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. But it does not have to be this way.
Oh, okay.
Every single leader, every single government, and every single person can do their bit to break.
And their bit is just to listen to whatever the hell we tell you to do.
Break off chains of transmission and end the collective suffering. I'm not saying it's easy. It's clearly not. I know that many leaders are working in difficult circumstances. I know that there are other health, economic, social, and cultural challenges to weigh up. Just today,
and just to be clear for YouTube, I think that, I think I'm going to change my religion. Whatever you say, YouTube, and whatever he says, I think that is the word of God. I would never question it. I'm just having a discussion.
The latest edition of the State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World was published, which estimates that almost 690 million.
I don't think they have enough power. I think they should have more power. I just want to make sure YouTube hears that. I want, not only am I not questioning them, I don't think they have enough power. They should be able to control when I eat, when I sleep, when I take a shit, and everything else in between. You got that, Alphabet? I'm fully on board with you.
Million people went hungry in 2019. While it's too soon to assess the full impact of COVID-19, the report estimates that 130 million more people may face chronic hunger by the end of this year. There are no shortcuts out of this pandemic. We all hope there will be an effective vaccine, but we need to focus on using the tools we have now to suppress transmission and save lives. We need to reach a sustainable situation where we have adequate control of this virus without shutting down our lives entirely or lurching from lockdown to lockdown, which has a hugely detrimental impact on societies. I want to be straight with you. There will be no return to the old normal for the foreseeable future.
Come again, my nigga?
I repeat, there will be no return to the old normal for the foreseeable future. But there is a roadmap to a situation where we can control the disease and get on with our lives.
I present to you top men, and that will be the new top man. I don't know who the top men of top men are, but that's who we're looking at. That you feel warm and fuzzy inside yet? Are you feeling cozy? Oh man. When this all happens, there's going to be punishment for non-compliance. An adaptable incentive regime, including sanctions such as public reprimands, economic sanctions, or denial of benefits. If you report stuff in a timely manner, you'll get financial resources. If you don't, you will lose out. So when that tends to happen, then you tend to report them. Oh, and who gets to decide what defines a pandemic? The same people who have the power. You can't make this stuff up. Let me know what you think.